my reaction to how season 2 of Netflix's Cheer addressed the Jerry Harris scandal. Now, I've covered this story multiple times over the past few years, I guess, now that this story is almost 2 years old, and given updates. But at the end, I will link you to the previous videos on this if you are new to what's going on. But before we get into how season 2 shows Jerry's struggles, it is important to note that season 2 of this show was the #1 show on all of Netflix in the US as of its premiere on January 12th. And to be clear, I am not going to be spoiling what is shown on the show, anything besides what was covered regarding Jerry Harris and the legal things surrounding him, which was fascinating to watch, to say the least. But if you're close with these people on social media anyway, then you probably already knew what was going to happen on the show. You were just probably tuning in to see how it all unfolded regarding the actual cheerleading competition. But with that said, venture into the comment section at your own risk. All right, let's start by recapping the coverage of Jerry in season 2 and some things that I observed that give context to the Netflix coverage before later giving my overall thoughts on everything going on. But I was not sure how or where they were going to pick up for season 2 after season 1, and it looks like season 2 would have been released a year ago if the pandemic hadn't happened, cutting the 2020 season short. And because they started filming right when season 1 aired, or got done airing in early 2020 before anything happened with Jerry, we see Jerry in most scenes in the first half of season 2, with episodes 1, 2, and 5 more heavily focusing on him. Now, starting in episode 1, right out of the gate, they address the Jerry situation. And they confirm to me that they are taking this very serious, and as they should. But I also think that they had to address it right out of the gate because they show footage from the start of the season with Jerry in it that they clearly could not skirt around or just dump all that footage because it was most of the season. But instead, they had to face it head on, which seemed like the right thing to do, considering the way filming unfolded in 2 halves because of the pandemic, cutting 1 season short. But this is unlike what was done with the Hype House TikTok series on Netflix, where it appears they tried to cut out an entire person from the show whose storyline was the main reason people were tuning in. And now that show isn't doing very well, and it got panned in the media and on social media because the whole reason people were tuning in got cut out. So while Cheer on Netflix, I think, would have done well without any scandals surrounding Jerry, unfortunately, Jerry's legal troubles and his victims coming forward are making this show more popular. And I also thought it was smart of them to put a timeline throughout the season, not only to get ahead of people asking when the Jerry footage was filmed and to get ahead of any questions about Netflix's involvement with him after the scandal broke, but also to show how much the world in general and their world has changed since January of 2020 when season 1 aired, and especially how quickly the stars of season 1, how quickly their fame rose, and unfortunately, one of them, their fame fell just as fast. And that leads us in to episode 2, where the show really dedicated an entire episode to how fame in the cheer world and beyond, fueled by season 1 of the show, affected the stars, and how it affected those not featured in season 1 who are now on a team with people who are in the limelight now because of the last season of the show. With Jerry in particular, we are seeing how it has affected basically every part of his everyday life, whether they are in the salon here getting pedicures and manicures, and people are recognizing him there and wanting to take pictures, to doing, as you see here, paid cameo videos at basically all hours of the day, to filming commercials and doing interviews, which are disrupting practices and also disrupting time hanging out with friends. Now, we did see in the episodes some of the teammates being a little annoyed with all these interruptions because most of them say they are there to cheer and to win, not to be famous. And it does appear, though, that the stars of season 1 that are still on the team at this point are trying not to let the fame get to their head and just trying to embrace this new normal for the good it can bring and trying to take advantage of good opportunities that maybe are once in a lifetime. But there was kind of an alluding to this new fame adding pressure and more distractions to the group. In episode 3, Jerry was still kind of his happy-go-lucky self and still seems like he didn't think anything was going wrong or that anything was going to come out that would change the trajectory of his life. But then we get to episode 5 titled Jerry, where the cheer season of 2020 had abruptly ended and Coach Monica is taking time off from the team in fall 2020, which later she revealed was her going on Dancing with the Stars, but she couldn't say it at first because she was waiting for the Dancing with the Stars people to announce that. But it added to the earlier fallout of fame from the show for the team, where they make a point to show also that Jerry had actually sent in a video, Matt talking or cheering on Monica on Dancing with the Stars when they announced it. And this happened just days before just before the news broke of the FBI raid to his house. So then we dove into the fallout of the arrest and charges, where it appears Jerry was not on the team when the new school year started, so I'm sure that made it a little easier to react from a team standpoint, meaning they didn't need to fill his spot and he was in custody, so there wouldn't have been a choice to keep him on the team at all unless he had been released on bail, which hasn't happened yet, and we will get into that in a little bit. But let's get into the team and Monica's reactions to the news as seen on season 2 of Cheer. So first we get to Gabi Butler, who was already well known in the cheer community before season 1, but she was clearly, as you see here, heartbroken, emotional, and shaken up upon hearing this news and recounting her experience learning the news. She said she couldn't even wrap her head around any of what Jerry was being accused of, and she said it actually felt like someone had died. And then she said she was screaming and crying at the same time when she got the phone call about what was going on with Jerry. And Gabi then said that she does not condone any of what Jerry is being accused of, but Jerry is like family to her, so how can she hate him? She said she knows people expect her to turn her back on him, but she says she can't because he was there for her when she needed him. And I personally think that's really big of her to want to stay connected with him and stay friends with him. And it kind of reminds me of what is going on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and Salt Lake City regarding Erica Girardi and Jen Shaw. Of course, all these situations are unique and a little different in their own rights, but I personally think you can remain in touch with someone accused of horrible things and still be a good person yourself, as long as you hold that friend accountable and give them a chance to show they've changed. And if they don't change, then you can set a different boundary with them, even if it means that boundary is no longer being connected to them. Of course, I don't think known anybody being accused of this serious of stuff. So maybe I would change my mind if I was in that situation. But anyways, let's keep going to Ladarius, who said he actually found out when he was scrolling through Twitter and saw the headlines and immediately thought, there's no way this is the Jerry that I know. And he said he didn't want to believe it to be true, saying that if he had known about this, he would have, quote unquote, snatched up Jerry right away as his friend to set him straight, which shows in a different way how he would have been a good friend to Jerry, or is a good friend to Jerry, this in a different way that Gabi is. But anyways, Maddy is then a newcomer to this season, and she says she actually she thought she knew everything about Jerry, but clearly she says that they didn't. And then James says he never really heard from Jerry about any of this behavior or any indication that this was going on. And James says he was asking himself, how could he have done more to maybe guide Jerry away from this behavior or somewhere else? And then he joins his teammate Christian, and as they're watching a Dr. Oz show episode covering this story, they bring up a point that I kind of touched on a little bit last time of wondering if maybe something in Jerry's childhood had triggered this behavior. Now, they say they didn't get a chance to get to know him that well, but they also make a good point in saying you don't really fish for someone, fish for information from someone regarding this, meaning like being a predator to children and some secret stuff that would be going on behind the scenes, especially Jerry, who's someone who is this happy-go-lucky, very smiley guy. So it'll be interesting to see what else unfolds out of this. But anyways, as far as Monica goes, she found out about Jerry's troubles, what she says, on stage at Dancing with the Stars rehearsal for their last live show, where she says a producer showed her a headline on her phone, where Monica says she didn't even want to look at her phone from then on because she didn't think she could take the weight of it. Followed by Monica sharing the team had a virtual meeting that night when the news broke, and she said it felt like a funeral. And all of this being said while tearing up, but later then Monica shares a letter she actually got from Jerry after everything came to light about his positive hope for the future of being a motivational speaker. And Monica seems to be interpreting it as Jerry is going to become a better person after this all passes and use that to inspire others to do better after being better himself. So and Monica was kind of, I think rightfully, a little confused by this letter, but apparently we didn't get an answer if she responded back to him or if there's any more correspondence between them at the moment. But in this same episode, we then pivoted to addressing the specific claims in the lawsuit by the twin boys and the FBI reaction to the allegations. So we first talked to an attorney for victims of abuse representing the twin boys in the lawsuit named Sarah Klein, which we later see she was actually a victim of Larry Nassar in the USA Gymnastics scandal, who will be touched on again later as well. And she says that was her victimization of Larry Nassar is what encouraged her to go into this practice of law of helping victims. So Sarah then pointed out how you don't have to know, or you don't know who someone is behind closed doors. And she explained how hard it is to come forward as a victim. Later then she said she wasn't happy with Coach Monica's public statement on the matter. And in Monica and others' defenses, I'm not sure if they can say anything or do anything at this point that would be enough for some people, especially those who have had the people involved with Jerry who had no indication about what was going on, which we'll get a glimpse of who was made aware of this and didn't really take action in a little bit. But now we get to actually hear from the twins and their mother directly for this episode. And the boys who came forward with the accusations and lawsuit against Jerry start by sharing why they were even drawn to cheerleading, as told by their mother too, in general, because they said it was a place where they were able to be themselves without judgment, and especially as kids who were a little bit different than their peers in a time in life that is difficult for everyone already. And then the twins kind of explain in more detail their interactions with Jerry, starting with direct messages on social media saying Jerry even asked their age at first, which they replied, or one of the twins replied that he was 13 at the time, but Jerry then still proceeded to ask him for explicit pics, even knowing they were young teenagers. And this was the first glimpse of us getting to know Jerry behind the scenes or behind closed doors, and clearly he was asking their age for a reason. Not sure if Jerry thought because they were a teenager or over 12 that it was okay, or what his angle was with asking for an age. I don't know, but they then explained that his star power as part of the Cheer Athletic All-Star Cheer programs and their social media accounts before the Netflix Cheer documentary came out led them to basically want to do anything to make him like them. And they said when they didn't act the way he wanted, Jerry would make them feel bad about it. Then one twin says at the first cheer competition they attended with Jerry, he was avoiding Jerry to not cause any trouble after Jerry had responded poorly to him not having the same reaction to Jerry in the initial interactions. And he denied Jerry's multiple attempts to meet up at the competition, but then ended up meeting up with him anyway in a bathroom, which is where Jerry was pleading with him to have sex. And the twin said no and was adamant about saying no and ended up not feeling comfortable staying there and left the bathroom. Now, his other twin, his brother, said he noticed something was wrong when they went to do their warm-up with their team later in the day at that competition and noticed something off with his brother, but was later filled in by his brother about what happened in the bathroom. They say this incident really rocked their idea of cheer being the safe place they thought it was, followed shortly after by Jerry then messaging the other twin, where the other twin said he felt sad and angry over time and felt ashamed to the point that they didn't even want to tell their mom because they knew she would report it. And they knew if she reported it that they would lose all their friends in cheerleading. And this story does line up with what we touched on last video regarding what was detailed in the lawsuit. So they are being consistent in their stories. Now, their mom then gets a chance to speak about the situation from the angle of a parent. And she says she actually found out what was going on when she was doing a random check of the twins' phones and found a text message toward the top of the list of people they were texting from Jerry, basically saying, "I'm sorry for the past and it isn't a good idea to be friends on Snapchat anymore." To which the mom says she wasn't able to see when she asked her son for the Snapchat. She wasn't able to see what was going on there because the messages were under the "For My Eyes Only" feature. Well, the mom then shares the first thing when her son opened that password protected section up was a video allegedly of Jerry self-pleasuring, prompting the mother to be rightfully horrified. She goes on to say that her twins saw Jerry was doing a lot for the sport at the time, and they didn't want to say anything against Jerry in the height of his fame. But the twins say that their breaking point in wanting to report this more and get attention to this was the morning they saw Jerry talking with President Biden, I believe over Instagram Live or some video chat thing. And shortly after, their mom contacted Cheer Athletics Plano, Texas gym co-owner, which is the gym's co-owner, which is Jerry's gym, via phone, but was met with skepticism over the claims. So the next day, the mom then made a report to the USASF, which is the United States All-Star Federation, and still nothing happened. So the mom then says the boys continue to open up more about what was going on between them and Jerry, and they actually told her finally about the incident in the bathroom at the competition, prompting another report by her a few weeks later. The twins then say that being anonymous on the news at this point was not working, so their mom then made a report to the FBI, and quickly, she said, the quickest out of all the reports she's done, they had an FBI agent contact her about the allegations, but the mom was then smart enough to know that there was a chance the FBI maybe wouldn't do anything about it, so she still pursued media releases of information at the same time to make sure attention was brought to the issue and that it wouldn't die out if the FBI, for whatever reason, chose to not do anything about this. So this effort led to the USA Today reporters for the USA Gymnastics Larry Nassar scandal reaching out to the twins' mom to pursue their investigation of the cheer world in a similar aspect that they did with the USA Gymnastics. This resulted in them finding a pattern of not reporting or taking action against predators in the cheer sport and in the cheer world who had been convicted of crimes against children. Now, the USA Today reporters featured reiterated why Jerry is still in custody, because he dumped his old phone and got a new phone right after being aware of the investigation into his actions, prompting the judge in the case to see him as a threat still because of those actions. And this info is where my stance, as kind of previously stated, of maybe Jerry didn't think he was doing anything wrong, or he wasn't aware that this was illegal or whatnot. All that mindset of mine changed because his actions, once he realized he was potentially in the wrong, indicated he wasn't taking accountability or course correcting, and wasn't remorseful. And that also came up with the claims from the twin boys regarding Jerry asking their age first anyway. So clearly there's some wheels turning up here that are not connecting with someone who's remorseful and regrets what they're doing or didn't think they did anything wrong. So the twins then wrap up by sharing the fallout from speaking out against Jerry, and it was in losing the community they had in cheer, and even one person at their gym quitting because they didn't want to be associated with the twins because of the claims that they've made. And this was followed by the episode ending with a flashback to footage of Jerry from the 2019 cheer season and the first season of the show, where he was basically thanking cheer for keeping him out of trouble and off the streets and making him not mad at the world and whatnot, which is a sharp contrast to what is currently happening to him legally. So now to my overall thoughts on this. So first of all, I am puzzled by Netflix's choice to not mention the others implicated in their own scandals during season 2 of Cheer, because Robert Scianna and Mitchell Ryan, who are pictured here, both appeared on season 1, albeit very brief, and they weren't the main focus of the show. But if they were really trying to address the full scandal about Jerry connected to the team in the show, I would think they would want to cover all their bases. And also to that point, I thought I saw Mitchell in the background of some of the first half of the season episodes. Of course, he's not the main focus, and maybe there's some contractual things as well regarding how much Netflix could show of certain people. So maybe certain people on the show don't have contracts where they can show basically whatever they want or talk about whatever they want. But I do give Netflix credit for addressing in episode 1 and 4 others who were featured in the first season of the show who have gotten in trouble since. One being Lexi, who they were kind of vague about what she was in trouble for, but apparently whatever it was, it got dropped, whatever she was in trouble for. And then the former assistant coach, Kapena, for, I guess, what he said are things related to underage drinking with the team for homecoming. And so I'm just going to chalk this whole thing up to Jerry being the main focus, and that's why some people were featured more than others regarding their troubles. And because of the seriousness of the charges against Jerry, coupled with his popularity as a result of season 1, I think that's probably why I'm guessing they weren't focused on that. But as far as Lexi and Kapena, who are featured or seen here, they appear to be taking responsibility for their part in this, in their troubles. So hopefully Jerry, if convicted, will do the same. I will say too, it was refreshing to know that Monica is sticking to her rules regarding Lexi and Kapena in a world where special exceptions for certain people and certain groups are becoming more common. And this was actually something I mentioned in my last video that I made before the season premiered, of saying that I wanted to see them hold Jerry accountable and not give him special treatment. And it looks like everyone did follow through with that by condemning his actions, even though the lawyer that represents the twin boys isn't very happy with Monica's response. But anyways, let's keep going. So during the episode where they talked about the fame resulting from the show, and also the episode specifically dedicated to Jerry, it just showed and illustrated how far-reaching his influence went, to the point where he was interacting with the top people in basically all categories, including entertainment and politics. Now, the twin boys mentioned President Biden in the footage they showed for the season. But I don't think at the time of the video between Jerry and President Biden, I don't think he was president yet, because I believe it was still 2020, and I think it was during his campaign. But now he's President Biden, so they're referring to him as that. But it was hard not to cringe at knowing what we know now, seeing so many well-known, influential people propping Jerry up, because obviously they didn't know what he was doing behind closed doors. And of course, now they all look like fools. But I had to keep reminding myself to not hold all those people accountable for what Jerry did, unless there is a direct correlation and a main reason for his actions being the effects of fame and power on certain people, which he already had some level of fame before the Netflix series came along, but maybe the Netflix bump just took that to another level. Who knows? But I also think the people who look the worst now are the ones who didn't take the claims seriously when they were made aware of them by the twins' mom, including USASF and Jerry's gym owners, who the mom of the twin boys contacted directly. And although they look really bad and could have done irreparable damage to not only their personal reputations, but their businesses and the sport as a whole, I do think if they learn from this and course correct immediately, they may be able to salvage that reputation or that image with a lot of people. But unfortunately, they probably lost some for good as well. So, moving on. One thing I did not expect, but was pleasantly surprised to see, was that the twin boys and their mom, who brought the lawsuit upon Jerry, did get a chance to speak for themselves again for this show specifically, and to have the mom tell her side of the story from a parent's perspective, which was also something I wanted to see. I stated in my pre-season premiere video. But on the other hand, I was a little disappointed that Jerry didn't have a chance to comment because his team of lawyers declined to do so. But I also understand why they wouldn't want to do that until the jury trial happens and there's a verdict. So it's kind of one of those catch-22s where we want to hear from him, but also we want to make sure he gets his day in court. And finally, one good thing this show on Netflix has in particular is its contrast to what many are calling kind of the wokeism of newer Netflix original series, whether it's mostly the scripted ones they're talking about. Because although Cheer addresses issues that many could say are kind of under the woke umbrella, if you will, at the end of the day, it is about a show about who is the best cheerleading team and how it positively impacts the kids on this team and the sport in general does, despite their upbringing, despite the challenges growing up and all the things they've had to overcome. And I hope this Jerry Harris scandal story will kickstart some changes needed to preserve what makes the sport great for so many young people. And for me, as someone who wants to be a parent at some point, if this was an option for a sport that one of my children could play, I want to know that there's things being done to protect them if I was going to put them in the sport. And if there isn't, then is the sport going to last very long? I don't know. But in my opinion, the Netflix in general has been doing unscripted reality TV, docuseries, whatever you want to call them, really well recently. And then we'll see if season 3 is on the way for Cheer. But if you are tuning in from the YouTube segment, make sure to tap or click the screen for more from the channel.